The school had already labeled her son a problem. Teachers had stopped trying. Other parents whispered, and a struggling mother was slowly running out of hope until one teacher looked at her child and said, "I refuse to give up on him." Lena Brooks never imagined that motherhood would feel this lonely. Every morning before sunrise, she woke up in her small apartment, quietly so she wouldn't disturb her son. She worked two jobs, cleaning offices at dawn and serving tables at night, and still, it never felt like enough. Bills piled up faster than her paychecks. Exhaustion lived in her bones, and worry never left her mind. But nothing weighed heavier on Lena's heart than her 10-year-old son, Marcus. Marcus was smart, curious, creative, but school didn't see that. They saw a troublemaker, a distraction, a child who couldn't sit still, who struggled with reading, who asked too many questions at the wrong times. Almost every week, Lena received another call. "Mrs. Brooks, Marcus disrupted class again." "Mrs. Brooks, Marcus didn't finish his work." "Mrs. Brooks, have you considered transferring him?" Each call chipped away at her hope. One afternoon, she sat in the principal's office while Marcus stared at the floor, shoulders slumped. "We're concerned," the principal said calmly. "If Marcus doesn't improve, we may need to consider special placement." Lena nodded, fighting tears. She had heard those words before. On the walk home, Marcus finally spoke. "Mom, am I bad?" Lena stopped walking. She knelt in front of him, cupping his face. "No," she said firmly, voice trembling. "You are not bad. You're just different, and different is not wrong." But that night, alone in her kitchen, Lena cried. Because love wasn't fixing the problem. Hard work wasn't fixing the problem. And she was terrified her son was slipping through cracks she couldn't close. The next week, Marcus came home quieter than usual. "How was school?" Lena asked. Marcus shrugged. "We got a new teacher." Lena didn't think much of it, until the phone rang 2 days later. She braced herself for another complaint, but the voice on the other end surprised her. "Hello, Mrs. Brooks. This is Miss Alvarez, Marcus's new homeroom teacher." Lena's chest tightened. "Yes?" she said carefully. "I wanted to call and talk about Marcus," the teacher said warmly, "but not for the reason you might expect." Lena paused. "He's incredibly imaginative," Miss Alvarez continued. "He sees patterns other kids miss, and he asks questions that make me think." Lena felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Hope. "I know he struggles," the teacher added, "but I believe he can succeed if we work together." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "No one has ever said that before," she whispered. "Well," Miss Alvarez replied gently, "I refuse to give up on a child who hasn't been given a real chance." From that day on, things slowly began to change. Miss Alvarez stayed after school with Marcus, patiently breaking lessons into smaller pieces. She encouraged his creativity instead of punishing it. She noticed when he tried, even when he failed. When Marcus acted out, she didn't shame him. She asked, "What's going on in your head right now?" For the first time, Marcus felt seen. At home, Lena noticed the difference. Marcus started talking about school again, started showing her drawings, started smiling. One evening, he placed a worksheet on the table. "I got a B," he said quietly, almost afraid to celebrate. Lena covered her mouth. "A B?" she repeated. Marcus nodded. "Miss Alvarez says progress matters more than perfection." Lena hugged him tightly. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone else to believe in her child, until it happened. But life didn't magically get easier. Lena still struggled to pay rent, still worked late nights, still felt like she was failing in 100 unseen ways. One afternoon, Marcus came home sick, and Lena had to miss a shift at work. Her manager warned her, "Next time, we'll have to let you go." That night, Lena sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands, wondering how much longer she could hold everything together. The next day, she received another call from school. Her stomach dropped, but it was Miss Alvarez again. "I noticed Marcus wasn't himself today," she said. "He said you work very hard." Lena swallowed. "I'm trying," she admitted, "but sometimes I feel like I'm not enough." Ms. Alvarez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You are doing something extraordinary, and your son sees it, even when he doesn't say it." A week later, Ms. Alvarez surprised Lena with information about a free after-school program, tutoring resources, and a local support group for parents. She helped Lena apply, helped Marcus enroll, helped in ways that went far beyond a classroom. By the end of the school year, Marcus stood on stage at the school assembly, holding a certificate for Most Improved Student. Lena watched from the audience, tears streaming down her face. She thought of all the nights she cried alone, all the times she questioned herself, all the moments she nearly gave up. After the ceremony, Marcus ran into her arms. "Mom," he said proudly, "Ms. Alvarez says I should be proud of myself." Lena looked across the room. Ms. Alvarez smiled and nodded. Later that day, Lena approached her. "I don't know how to thank you," Lena said. "You changed my son's life." Ms. Alvarez shook her head gently. "No," she said. "You never stopped fighting for him. I just refused to let the world give up on him." Years later, Marcus would remember that year clearly. Not the failures, not the labels, but the teacher who believed, and the mother who never stopped trying, even when she was exhausted, afraid, and unsure. And Lena would always remember the moment she realized hope doesn't always come as a miracle. Sometimes, it comes as a person who simply refuses to give up. When the world was ready to give up on her child, one teacher stood firm and gave a struggling mother the hope she desperately needed.